All right, where's my agenda? Let me turn my. Attention. We're ready to start the meeting. Okay, first item up would be roll call. Ms. Kaufman?
Jay Reeves.
Here.
Bill Warner.
Here.
Here.
Michael Hill.
Here.
Michelle Hazen. Nathaniel Courtney.
Here.
Philip Haight. Bridget Murphy.
Here.
Azza Kamal. You have quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next item up would be approval of the minutes for September 6th, 22.
Move to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those carry. The next one would be October 18th, 22.
Motion to approve.
The second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those carry as well.
The agenda.
Okay.
Adopt the agenda.
Okay,
We have an agenda.
yeah, I see that, okay. All right, next, we're gonna adopt the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. That brings us to public comment. Is there anyone here to speak on an item that's not already on the agenda?
We actually do.
Of course.
I wanted to give anyone else a chance before I came up here because our presentation will be a little longer, I think, than usual. Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. My name is Peter McNeese. I work for Parks and Recreation here at the City of Gainesville at the Wild Spaces Public Places program. And I've been coming to you every month to talk about the Thelma Bolton Center. For today's meeting, we have a special guest. Mr. Gonzalez is the principal of REG Architects from South Florida. They have quite a reputation for being historic preservationists and are experts in that field. And he's here to present the findings of his report and the work that he did with some structural engineers and some civil engineers. So, Mr. Gonzalez?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, board members, and good evening, staff, and happy birthday to you, staff. And glad to be here today on this special day to meet with you. We were fortunate to meet with Peter earlier this year, a couple of months ago, to talk about the potential for this assignment, this very important community building to the city of Gainesville and the citizens of Gainesville. And under a very tight schedule because of things that are occurring with the building. You know, it has not been, it needs work, and therefore it needs immediate attention. So we worked with Robert. Robert Best is over here. He's with Chen Moore. He's the prime for the contract. He's our civil engineer. And we also have a report from O&M&J structural engineers. They work like us statewide, and they're the type of structural engineers that like to work on historic buildings, you know. And I'll show you some case studies of projects that we've done with them, in some of them in worse shape than the Thelma Bolton too. So, and they have a report too with some recommendations in the file. I've also provided you with the booklet, the report, which is basically the PowerPoint's going to be the same thing. And I would like to maybe move forward now with your permission.
Please do.
Okay, thank you. So we know where the Thelma Bolton is on 5th and 2nd here in near downtown in your historic district. It's a building of much importance to the neighborhood and to the city. Built in 1942 after the almost at the end of the WPA period. It really was, and you can tell in the detailing in more of a masonry vernacular with some classical detailing to it, which is kind of a nice way of taking that style and giving it just enough of a touch here and there on the cornices, on the entries, on the windows, you know, to make it feel special. And I think it's a very special building. It's 80 years old this year, so that's a significant age. It was used, as you know, for many events for our soldiers, you know, and for many, many years as a community center. enjoyed here in Gainesville. There's a creek next to it, the freshwater creek on the side, and it's located adjacent to historic areas on the west side and on the east side to the north. To the southwest is a new development, compatible with the neighborhood. And then there's parking lot across the street to the south and adjacent, owned by others to the southeast across the roadway. This is the survey of the property. One of the things that, looking at prior reports, there's a prior report that shows an addition going along this side, but the survey that we have shows, I'm imagining that's an abandoned right-of-way. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but that's something to look into, because that does show the 3rd Street coming and terminating into this little parking lot. And this is the parcel that we're speaking about with the right-of-way, and then the parcel to the north. And here are the 3 streets, and here's a little bit of the creek indicated at this location over here. These are some photos of the exterior, very recent photos. You've seen photos before. We wanted to take some new pictures just to make sure we had enough information of the building on its frontage. And we have the entry. Here's the side facing the west with those beautiful windows that I was talking to you about. Here's from the north, close to the creek on this side, showing there's a little 2-story, kind of like a lean-to, that was done in a more simpler design vernacular than the main hall. Here's the main hall, and here's the ramp coming up to the main hall. And here's the other rear side and another side view. Some details of the building. There's a chimney. That looked like a crack, but that's actually a tree limb over there, so don't ignore that one. This is the crack over here. And there are several cracks, especially along the northwest side, and some also on the northeast side. There are 2 trusses that have failed right over the stage, and that's more or less where these walls are. So by the trusses, failing, they start to do this, right? They start pushing out to the building walls, and that's why we have the area of most replacement would be in that northern section by the stage. There's your typical windows, 4/4. This is the smaller one, and then of course the larger ones in a moment. Inside the building, we were able to come and take a look at the inside. There's still a lot of drop ceilings and a lot of things in the way, but it's a heavy timber. We did look at the historical photos of the building, beautiful heavy timber. We've done a lot of buildings in South Florida where you keep the heavy timber look, you take all the junk, the 70s or the 60s junk off, you put new spiral ductwork, you put new lighting, and you have a great building. And I think that's the potential here on top of the structural work that needs to be done, but that's the potential once you eliminate all of these things. There's also an inappropriate lift design right in front of the stage, why they did that when they did that. They did it. We're suggesting, get rid of that, and there's a couple of very easy solutions, as we've done in other places too, that we can incorporate. This is now some photos of the adjacent space, which is this it's not really 2 stories, 1 story with a tall 1 story with a mezzanine overlooking the 1 story. So again, it's got the same type of drop ceiling situation. And then the hard ceiling on top of the mezzanine. And it's got a really nice little detail staircase coming in along this side over here, to this storage, pretty big size storage mezzanine up here close to the theater space. Our site plan, existing conditions first, and then the proposal after that. Again, showing you the existing conditions that I just mentioned, the historic district, to the west, to the east, and to the north. The whole area is historic, but to the south you have a different condition. You have new townhouses, which the scale is very appropriate with a parking lot, and again, the water feature, the creek coming along here, an additional parking lot. I think this is a church down at this location. And
Rick.
we've done a lot of... Yes?
Excuse me, can you do the pointer on that screen so that the board can see what you're talking about?
Yes, okay, so there's that creek, and the church is over here with the parking, and then the historic buildings along the side over here, and the new development over here to the southwest corner. today's existing conditions. There are also, Robert's going to talk about it a little bit too, but there's a damming effect with the stairs on the west and on the south side. There are also some easy fixes like pitching the site away from the building, creating swells and maybe even French drains along the west and south, and creating a buffer protection with a low planter on the east and the southeast. And Robert will show you some of those ideas. Sorry, I pointed the wrong place. Again, west and south, and then on the east and the southeast with the planter over here. This is the existing floor plan. The area of most concern is back here. There are 8 of these heavy timbered beams going all the way across from the back north facade all the way down to the south. That lift inappropriate design is right here at this location. And it's connected through a staircase with another lift situation, bottlenecking the stairs there too. So that's another one of our recommendations is going to be to get rid of that lift, make that a nice entrance into the secondary support space, the restrooms, the kitchen, and the multipurpose room, and relocate the lift over here to this location. And there's that mezzanine that's existing along the backside of the side wing, and with lots of storage, lots of opportunity there for mechanical rooms and for other uses. Office space, for example, lots of different things that space can be used for. This is a roof. Again, it's got a nice pitch roof on the main structure here of the auditorium. In the past, sometimes these are called gymnatoriums when they have the basketball hoop too. We've done a couple. The Boynton Beach example is one of those. And then the wing over here and the additional wing back here and the access to the back. In terms of the existing elevations, again, it's a very handsome building. You know, it's got a very nice symmetrical, appropriate scale design for the neighborhood with the exposed CMU block finish and the very, very nice windows and the entry feature. And then along the other side here on the west side, this is the south side. And then on the other side, on the east side, the open 2-story space with a little bit of 1-story piece. And then the other side elevations. Here are the typical windows. We have 6/6 doors with glass block and another smaller version over here. And then the back elevation of the building. I'm sorry it's showing so lightly there. It looks nice on the drawings. I'm glad I brought drawings. But the north elevation, again, very nice. Of course, that space is elevated compared to the other space, so it's much higher. And then where it meets that other section over here on the northeast side, we're a little bit of damage here, but a lot more on the northwest side. And it's always good to have, I think, some 3D drawings, some 3-dimensional axonometrics to show you the volumes of the building, the view from the front corner, from 5th and 2nd over here, the ramp that comes from the corner to the building, the 2-story in volume auditorium, and then the dog leg over here in the back. And this is a view from the northwest looking back towards the southeast. I'm sorry, this is from the, from the south looking back on the other direction. Proposed site plan would indicate opportunity within the site. If again, if that right-of-way is still there, there's still room for an addition. Maybe not as large of an addition as has been discussed in the past, but there is very easily room for an addition there. And if that's a right-of-way, then that parking lot can be redesigned as on-street type parking design, and you might pick up more spaces or the same amount of spaces, you know, and would have a more appropriate finish, you know, looking more like a street section versus a road that comes into a parking lot and takes away from this area here that's very nice for outdoor activities of the community center. We've incorporated a new entry over here with a culvert, and you'll see some of Robert's suggestions. And of course, reconstruction there and reconstruction along the east and southeast with potential planters to help alleviate some of the water conditions when you get storms. And I know it rains here just as much as it does in South Florida, and sometimes you get a big storm in a couple of hours. All right, so here's where the good part comes, okay? So first I'll look at the plan, and the red lines are indicating the conditions that we have. The one, these are the bays, one at the entrance of the south wall, 2, 3, 4, 5 open, and then the stage, the ones that are damaged significantly, 6 and 7, and then the last one up on 8 on the wall. So one of my first thoughts when I first came to look at the building, and we did a similar project in Fort Pierce called the Old St. Anastasia School. I think you might have been at the city at the time. I'm not sure when Ramon was, and John Ward was the CRA director, where that building, 3-story structure, was having uplift issues. So we came in and we put columns, foundations, and piles. We actually put auger piles, tied 3 floors all the way up to tie the roof trusses so the uplift wouldn't go away. So these columns, and we did an architectural detail, and I'm going to show you the structural at the end. But this is based on the structural, but that in plan, that would be the view. So an I column, steel column at each one of these locations on each side. And they're going to do 2 things. They're going to tie down those beams that are just sitting there, because that's the way they used to build back then. They would just put things, that's how the Romans did it too, right? Just put things and sit on the walls and carry the load down, right? But we know we can't do that anymore, so we would be adding these columns to tie those beams. And then also the double whammy, the double opportunity to tie in the walls that are spalling out. So that clipping those I-beams, I-columns to the walls, the double walls, the double block wall, to bring them in alignment and keep them a little bit sturdier. That's going to require also luckily it's a wood floor, it's a nice wood floor with a crawl space. So that means we have enough room, which in some of the other projects we've done, we have not had that situation, which makes it even more difficult when it's on grade. But because it's elevated, it's going to be, actually, I did a church in West Palm where we had short, small people getting into the crawl space to actually work on the foundations. The St. Anne's Church, 1890s in downtown West Palm, that's how we did the work. There's a good crawl space in the building, so we can come in and do the foundation work, the additional foundation work, and if piles are required, once we have a good soil test in the future, we'll incorporate piles if that's required. There's been some settlements, so we know we have some soil issues, especially in the northwest corner and a little bit on the northeast corner. That column would come all the way up and tie in again to the trusses. The trusses, there are 3 things that we can do with the trusses, and these are beautiful. We could see them with the flashlights. We couldn't see them because of the drop ceiling. Obviously, next step would be to do selective demolition and really open up the space, and then we could tighten up the report. But the trusses are, obviously, if the 2 are completely gone, as has been mentioned by the prior engineer and the current engineer, then they're replaced. Then the ceilings open up and you put new ones. In the project that we did, I'll show you in our case study here for both Boynton Beach and the Sunset Lounge in West Palm Beach, we had to replace heavy timber members. And that was part of a state grant too. There's state money. The Sunset Lounge received 2 $500,000 grants. And the Boynton Beach also received grant money, and the historical courthouse in West Palm Beach got 3 grants. So you can go for state grants. It's a city project, and you can go every year while you're doing the project. The deadlines are June 1st, so you can even help pay for our fees, through the smaller grants, and then there's also the bigger grants for construction. And so the trusses then would be replacement if need, heavy timber replacement if necessary, or we might end up doing some scabbing. That might be bringing additional wood members, or my preference would be to do steel plates and bolts. It's a nicer look. It's a very clean look. You can paint them to match the truss or the stain of the heavy timber truss, and it's a nice contrast with the air conditioning ductwork and the light fixtures that we can hang from there. So. That's the way to stiffen it. So either stiffening it with wood or doing the plates, or where necessary at those 2 locations, replacing them with new timber. Sometimes you can recycle the timber, so that's another thing once we get into that to see how bad it's gone. We had termite damage in the other 2 projects, so some of them were complete replacement. That's a case-by-case basis once you get into selective demolition. And I've got some 3D renderings to show you. The first one would be the top. If you're sitting down here looking at the stage, There's no more lift. The lift is tucked back over here. The columns go all the way along. There's a conflict at this Art Deco feature, kind of like Art Moderne feature, which is the radii here for the stage. So what we're proposing at that location, figure out a different, the column is just shifted, so the opening stays the same and we don't compromise the opening. And then we'll figure out how to do the tiebacks at that one location. It's the only location out of the 8 where we have to be out of sequence, which is right there and there. And then, of course, you can see the purlins, the decking, all of those things, what's good is reusable, what's not, would be replaced. New plywood, a peel and stick roof, and a nice new roof on top of that when you're all done. The old Mount Carmel right now, which we haven't brought to your board, which we will bring to your board, we just got a grant, Cleary Larkin from the University of Florida has been amazing. She got a grant, several $100,000 to start working on the roof. So you'll be seeing us hopefully in the next quarter with a proposal for that, and hopefully they'll keep raising money. That's also $2, $3, maybe even $4 million project that they do the kitchen and they do all the things that they want to do. So that's just to share that example with you. Looking from, this will be from the stage, looking out. Those are those 2 curved walls that are there by the entrance, and then the columns set aside. And of course, then all the decking, air conditioning, lighting, would be something that we can show later. I like this. Let me go back to the prior sheet because I did not go over this axonometric over here. This is a real simple way of explaining, I think, to the layperson what's happening here, right, with this system of construction, which is a very good system of construction. It just has been neglected for a very long time. And water destroys everything in Florida. I mean, basically, the building that collapsed down in Miami was water damage, right? So you don't treat water, you let water get in, eventually you're going to have a lot more work to do. And so that's the system that's in place with the trusses, the purlins, and the decking. The red is just a diagram to show you how the AC might work, similar to what we did at the Sunset Lounge. And then, of course, the steel columns coming along on the inside, so they're not visible from the outside, which is a nice thing, right? We're trying to really keep the building as pure as possible, including proposing not to do an entrance here, but to reconfigure the interiors in a different way. As you can see, the proposal would be, again, the meeting and event space, a secondary event space, a nice kitchen, a nice storage freezer, more or less where you now have it. Flip the restrooms because the ladies always need more restrooms than the men, so go ahead and make the ladies' restrooms on the north side, the men's over here, and create a very nice connection between the auditorium and the multi-purpose space, and relocate the lift and allow for the lift to come down and on the side over here. Just like this other little lift was relocated back here behind the stage, and then being able to go up to the stage, out of sight, right? I mean, that's something I think is important to delineate. I'll let Robert, and then I'll come back later. Robert? Sure. Thank you.
I'll just briefly summarize our analysis of the site and the building from the civil or the site perspective. So this was a memo that we had prepared, passed on our RG architects, and with our findings that they've included in their sheets. This first image up here is highlighting where, based on survey analysis, visual inspection of the site, as well as conversations with different city staff, where there's at least been historical ponding, or especially in the case right adjacent to the creek, where are certain heavier storm events, not just tropical events, but more frequently occurring events where they've actually seen the creek raise up and pretty much cover roughly that blue area on the east side of property, which if you get out there, it's pretty close to that eastern corner. So we wanted to identify some areas. So we wanted to identify areas that at least had the existing condition of pondings or not the best drainage going on. And as Rick mentioned, with water, we really don't want that next to the building. Part of that has also been, and would be part of the recommendation, is replacing all the hardscaping. So the sidewalks, the ramps. What that is right now different segments of the sidewalks are uneven. So they create kind of damming and misdirect the drainage as it flows through the site. One area we noticed this is that is the west entrance from the sidewalk down to that west doorway. And not the best picture here, but if you have the report in front of you, you can see that there's actually been undermining underneath that landing. So that is one big recommendation that we had put in there as part of the replacing all that hardscaping is these stairways that the sidewalk itself will allow better flow of the drainage on the site, but noticing stuff like the undermining there just brings in the safety concern too for access to the building. On the bottom left, this image is kind of the two biggest recommendations, which also are incorporated into RAG's proposed site concept, is creating the green reflects positive drainage or sloping away from the building. So grading right around the building, creating kind of a dry trench or a swale around the outside. I believe also part of what RG considered was French drains or some kind of culverts to basically bypass any flow on the site away from the building so it's not sitting up against the building and eventually can make its way back down towards the Sweetwater Branch Creek. Another part of that, as I mentioned up here, where on the east side is where it really starts to get flooding during certain events. We have this existing sidewalk that goes from the northeast backside around to the southeast entrance, and we're proposing to, because you're limited on what you can do there, is take that existing between the pathway and the building and do a raised planter. So that will create the buffer from having water right against the building on that side, but it also will be an aesthetically pleasing aspect to complement the site versus taking into consideration that the aesthetics of the building while trying to address the site issues. So that is a summary of the civil aspect.
The structural report, there's also a blow-up in your files there for you to take a closer look at it. O&M & J is a structural firm based in Florida and in Pennsylvania, and I've worked with them for over 30 years. I'm sure we run into this in historic preservation, Bill and Kathleen having worked with them on Florida Trust and in other conditions where you get a structural engineer that is either scared of the building or simply worried that if they put their seal on a report, it better be darn, locked. And these guys, they think they don't over design and over, react to conditions. They help us find and problem solve. So they have a very good report. It's a conceptual, like Robert's report is a conceptual, first phase report to give you some thoughts and some ideas on how to deal with a building. In general, it talks about first the walls, the double wall. It's in very good condition on the south side, on the southwest side, on the southeast side, and even the north. It's a little compromised. Yes, on the northwest side and on the northeast side. That's where the columns will help bring it back in alignment. It's very scary when you look at it, right? Most you see. I'm used to seeing, small, right, Jay, as an architect, you see a small gap and you're like, all right, that's easy, we can fix that. But when you start seeing, more than an inch, you really start getting a little bit nervous, There's been settlement too, right? So that's also not only from the trusses pulling out, but from the ground underneath it, right? Whatever ground compaction was done needs to be grouted, uplisted. A good soil engineer working with it later will give us instructions on how to beefing up those foundations at those corners to bring it back to where it needs to be, right? So she's not feeling drabby and drop down, but the foundations are up. In terms of the roof, which is, let's see, on the next page. Oops, no, sorry. No, it's over here. Okay, so the roof report, oops. Oh, God, sorry, wrong button. In terms of the roofing report portion, again, just like the prior work, the two girders, right? Those two by the stage are the ones that we're almost sure are going to have to be replaced. Again, if the project hopefully moves forward, the very, very first thing would be selective demolition. Really get to the nitty gritty. Another example, because I know sometimes it's hard to, convince people, why are you doing these kind of projects, right? You look at examples and you say, well, if someone else could do it, another community could do it. Boynton Beach has maybe 4 historic buildings. And Gainesville has 400 or 4,000, right? I mean, different world. And so, you know, you take a building like the old high school, and first time this ever happened in my career, Jay, you're gonna love this one. 37 years working in this field, right? Building official tells me I have to increase the loads because we're not dealing with a high school anymore, which is children up to 18 years old. It's gonna be a community center now. So it has to hold up other older people from 18 to 80. Therefore, the loading now has to go from 50 pounds a square foot to 100 pounds a square foot.
Oh,
Crazy. This
That is
guy was
crazy.
from Broward County, brand new to Boynton Beach, never done a historic building. I've had great building officials that understand historic buildings. This guy said, nope, you're gonna do that. So we had to go into the crawl space of the classrooms, reinforce the first floor, all the way columns, second floor, all the way down to the roof, added a lot of extra costs to the building. So sometimes that's what you have. The great thing about this building, it was designed as a community building, and the proposed use is a community building. National Trust and National Park Service will tell you the best use for a historic building is the same exact use that it's had from when it was created. A church remaining a church, a community center remaining a community center. So I'm convinced that the building official will not ask us, you know, to upgrade the loads on the ground floor, but he is going to look at the framing and all of these column conditions to make sure that the building doesn't blow away, you know. There's no real load on it, you know, it's just the load of the trusses and going down to the foundation and making sure that it doesn't go away. Hurricanes are getting stronger. We just saw what happened in Southwest Florida. I'm not sure if you got any damage here, but south of here, Central Florida, got a lot of water, a lot of things. You know, Robert just pointed out some of the things that we can do. We can do additional damp proofing on that 3 feet all around the building. There are a lot of things that I propose once the project moves forward, in case that little creek becomes something unnatural for a while, right? So that's some of the things that we have to think about in the future. Other things too, in West Palm Beach, we're working on, we just today in the morning had the Armory Arts Center we started, and the new executive director says he wants to make it a resource center too. And what he meant for that is these hurricanes, right? After these hurricanes come and go in the future, we need to have a place in our communities, in our neighborhoods, where people can come and get food, water, have a generator, some air conditioning, you know, a place of repose, you know. So I would like to suggest that to the city too, that it also gets a generator, elevated, you know, and additional things so that in case of an emergency, you know, it can be there as a resource for the community. So if you read the rest of the report, it's very straightforward. It's 2 pages on the roofing, on the floor, on a very solid floor, very solid. There's even a picture showing the small 12 by 12 blocks holding up the joist for the wood floor. It's in really good shape. Thank goodness. And then they finished the report with, I asked them to give me a detail based on my thoughts on what I thought we could do. And this is the sketch that they provided that we incorporated into the design. It's basically the same sketch, right? The new column, the plan view, roof section at the eave. There's the clip, there's the angle and the clips to connect the heavy truss. There's the connections to bring back the wall into alignment. And as you go down to the floor, again, more clips to the wall. And then, of course, there is some sort of a foundation down there below the floor. We don't know how big, but we would dowel and add more foundation. And probably what's missing there is a little line, double line indicating auger pile if necessary, right? If that's something, which are very easy to do. They're about 5 feet. You can get them into the buildings and they can install them quite easily if necessary for the building. Let's see what else. The windows and doors do not have, they're not impact. There's no sills, ledgers, so we can do, at the historic courthouse in West Palm, we did a steel L bracket, you know, ledger. And also we cut out on the sides the block on the inside. Thank God it's a double wall, right? To add a new 8x8 steel and concrete to attach the wood windows, you know. Take them out, restore them, bring them back in. Most of the historic buildings that I've done in the past have done well in hurricanes. They do exceptionally well. There's a lot of push. There's a lot of push these days to just take out the windows, throw the windows away. You know, don't reuse the historic windows. They don't meet hurricane codes. You know, I have mixed feelings about that. You know, I'm sure you've run this in your buildings too, right? In terms of, these are solid windows, they can be restored. There are great companies in Florida that do this kind of work. I know of 3 that do this kind of work. There's a Window Preservation Association also in Florida with a lot of technical advice on how to preserve these windows. And there's many methods on how to deal with them in the event of a major Category 3, 4, or 5 hurricane, such as screening on the outside is one option. Removable shutters, interior shutters too is something that I've been using recently. So the window's going to get hit, but at least the space is not compromised. You know, that's another way of thinking about it. But where possible, I would like to recommend to the city to keep and reuse the windows. I think that's an important, very important architectural characteristic, defining feature of the building. You know, it's a very simple building from that period, from when we had no money in the country in the early 40s, right? So they spent a lot of time on the eaves, on the doors, and on the windows. So I'm hoping we can work with the building official at the appropriate time, and convince him to do the same. Let's see. And then so they're giving recommendations on the doors and windows, and of course they even get into architecture like painting the building, and good engineers, right? They're looking at the whole scope. And I think, we have 2 more sections. So we did a conceptual schedule. If in a perfect world, this would be a 30-month project, where you go, you do the design, come back to the board, get a construction manager at risk. That's the way to deliver a project like this, please. It's not a hard bid. It's not a design build bid. I've done it both ways, all 3 ways on historic buildings. And design build is very painful. The Boynton Beach High School was done design build, and it was a $10 million fixed price. So when, and this was before all the crazy escalation started, right? We delivered it 2 years ago in 2020. But we worked for the general contractor. So what does that mean? Rick, take out, you're not doing the bathrooms the way it used to look. You're not doing the railings and the staircase the way it looked. You got to value engineer. I don't know why they call it value engineering. You have to strip it down. I apologize for my language, but you have to strip it down because the budget, And yet it anchored a big redevelopment area of downtown Boynton Beach. And they spent a fortune in a new 4-story city hall and library across the street, So there were ways to get maybe $500,000 more. We could have had a lot more in the interiors. On the exterior, we spent all the money necessary. You go by the building today and it's drop dead gorgeous. But, it's nice not to have to do design build. And then hard bid, it's a constant battle. It's from the very first day. It's not a team approach with the client. The architect and the contractor, it's always, let me see where can I find a change order. And it's a couple of years of just pulling your hair out. I'm too old to do projects that, that are fights. I really prefer the construction manager at risk. It's a fair system. You get them on board early as you're developing the plans. The selective demolition is so important. It's so critical to have this construction manager on board. First, to do the selective demolition work under our direction, but then to figure out what needs to be replaced, what needs to be restored, how are we going to put this puzzle, back together. So I beg you, if anything else, go that route with a construction manager at risk. Design, Historic Preservation Board plans, and then of course trying to bring in the construction, the bidding, and the permitting. So 30 months is a conservative schedule. If someone said we're ready to go, then that could be accelerated. Maybe 24 months. But 30 months is fair enough to the spring of 2025. I think, right? That's 23, 24, and then springtime 2025. And then additional ammunition to help you to sell this to the mayor and the city commissioners is case studies. So I have several case studies. The first one's one here in town that we just finished with Kathleen and the University of Florida. And thank you to the students. I think there's some of the students who are here today. They did some wonderful work that was incorporated into the master plan. And this building has had a lot of neglect, including a blue tarp that fell apart because it was a blue tarp for too long, so there's a lot of water damage in there. And the sad thing is when you go up to the upper, it's your typical African-American church, right, where the first floor was always your your Sunday school and your kitchen and all that, and then you come up grand staircase to this amazing space. What's even more amazing to this building, which is a spectacular building, is that it had a drop ceiling, original from the beginning. And when we crawled up in there, it is a spectacular truss, heavy timber truss system that's in that church space, you know. And the pastor wants to use it more as a multi-purpose hall, right? So it's not just church, but it's going to be for other uses. So it has great potential, great beauty and great potential. But it also has a lot of water damage, a lot of termite damage, and it's going to take a lot of work. The grant that they have right now is just to replace, but we budgeted an estimate about $5.5 million or $450 a square foot to redo the whole thing, including a kitchen, 9 yards, all the whole, raise the site. There's an ADA issue on the site, so it's right on the street. So we've done this, you've heard of complete streets now, right? Everybody's doing complete streets. So our thought there is to, from the corner to the front door, sidewalk, street, and sidewalk, flush it out. So we can get flush access into the front door. There's about an 8-inch step there. And then on the left side, we would do, in fact, on this side over here, right behind this facade, on the left side, we would add a 3-level elevator to stop and make the whole building ADA accessible. You know, so that's the gist of this one. So this one is just now in the first phase of design based on the grants and the fundraising efforts that they're doing. This is the Boynton Beach High School. I think somebody saw this project and brought this to your attention, and then that's how we got involved with Pete and with Kathleen to come and look at your building. Let's see. Look at the trusses, right? Completely restored. This is combination steel, pearl, and wood purlins, and decking, and so forth. It's a gorgeous space. It used to be a gymnatorium. You see the bleachers on both sides. I'm not sure if you can. There's actually the hoop back over there, right? There's one hoop there, and there's another one on the wall. So that wasn't workable anymore. So we took that out, and it's now a multi-purpose hall, part of the Arts and Culture Center of the city of Boynton Beach. They're very, very proud of it. They use it for chamber events, for school graduation events, for birthday, for you name it, and they rent it. So the other part is having a really great business plan. Right? I mean, the cost to do these projects are a lot of money. Well, then putting a business plan together, which is what the city did, to rent it and get some income, you know, to pay back not all of the money, but pay back some of the money, and help with the and also for maintenance, right? To have an endowment to be able to maintain it. But you can see how it was in neglection. The stairs, the hallways. This is on the first floor, but not below this floor. It had terracotta tile floor. The weirdest system. It had 2 different structural systems. The front, where the class, and I don't have a picture of the classrooms, was 2-story elevated, and the back was this concrete and terracotta and concrete beam, let's see, concrete columns and beams, and really bizarre design, but very well built. Survived the 1928 hurricane, which was the horrible hurricane that killed 2,000 people around Lake Okeechobee, and the 26, which hit Miami, the 2 big whammies. This corner of the building, this portion on this tower was clipped. Other than that, there were a lot of people that survived that hurricane in that building. You know, so these things are built very, very well compared to how we build things today. You know, I hear there's a new hotel downtown that's already delaminating, you know. I mean, besides the aesthetical issues, you know, there's some issues here in terms of how cheap we're building things these days, you know. Whether by the university or downtown, it's all about cheap. You know, and I work for these developers too, and it's all about how quickly can I put it up. I don't care if it's going to last 20 or 30 or 40 years. It's about getting it built right away. And that's a shame, because it takes a lot of effort to build buildings, and they should be built for a long time. This building was designed by the premier architect of the 20s who did all the schools, African American, and he had worked with a firm in Palm Beach. And in this case, he incorporated art moderne with Mediterranean revival. So the towers, it's hard to see here, but the motif, and there's banding up here, and neoclassical too. Very, very talented guy, and all we did was restrain ourselves, which is what you don't see also a lot nowadays. My favorite project to hate is the ROM, the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto. If you've never been there, look it up online, where the architect, Lipskine, basically came in and added shard architecture things to the historic building. And not only did he do it on the outside, I remember the first time I went, I walked inside, he did it on the inside too. So a beautiful neoclassical floor plan destroyed by angled walls and things that inappropriate for historic preservation, right? For true restoration and reusing of existing buildings like it should be done. That one again, design build, so it's a little less expensive. It was done, finished 2 years ago, but it was a 4-year project, so that one came in under $400 a square foot. And then the last example, the one that just got finished, this is a significant African-American building in West Palm in the northwest neighborhood. I would say in all my years of doing preservation work, the most challenging one was the courthouse. The Palm Beach courthouse was an unwrapping. So the courthouse was a 40,000 square foot building, and they wrapped it because instead of going out to a referendum for a new courthouse, somebody in facilities thought it would be a better idea to chop all the columns, all the beams, and just add square footage in the 60s and 70s, you know? So we had to unwrap all that and bring it back together. That was really challenging because it was an exterior unwrap. This one was an interior unwrapping. And what do I mean by that? Somebody in the 70s thought it was a good idea to come in here and put apartments, fill in the mezzanines, fill in the lofts, and put in apartments, bathrooms, walls, and in other words, shove it with stuff to repurpose it as an apartment building. So we had to remove all of that stuff. The cost was also expensive because they added a rooftop bar that overlooks downtown West Palm, full kitchen on 2 floors. There's going to be a restaurant bar on the first floor, and there's a beautiful 2-story with a mezzanine, a jazz club that they're proposing at this location. The photo doesn't show the addition. It's got a significant addition on the side, so that's another reason for the high cost. Very, very large addition. So I caution additions. You know, I think they got crazy. Once they got into it, they couldn't stop. So work on the additions, carefully because they can, balloon the cost of a project very, very rapidly, like in this case. So I thought I'd bring you a difficult one too, to be fair and honest. And I think that concludes my presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any questions on available?
Thank you. Yep, amazing.
That was an amazing presentation.
Do we have any questions or anything?
I just want to comment that this presentation reflects a day and night difference between from what has come before us in regard to this, and reveals your sensitivity to not only the structure but its context. I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Bill.
I would concur with that.
I'll second that for sure.
Mr. Gonzalez, I
Yes.
want to thank you for this report, and I think this is why it's so important when the city is doing projects like this to hire experts
Yes.
who know what they're talking about. I realize this will be an expensive project, but I think in terms of the history we're losing left and right in Gainesville, it's worthwhile to invest in the history we still have. I know the city likes flashy new things. I think we may have difficulties with some commissioners who will be against spending money to fix the existing building.
Yes.
However, after looking at this report, I'll go on record saying I'm very disappointed in the commissioners, some of who I consider very good friends, in voting to tear this building down based on one structural report. I think that was kind of inappropriate of them, but I really appreciate you bringing this to us. I know you said you didn't want to get into like a job that was a fight, and sometimes in Gainesville everything can be a fight, even when it's worthwhile. But I am so thankful for this. I think it gives us a really firm foundation to push back against this desire in Gainesville to replace everything old with something new.
If I may share a little detail, Liz, on precisely another challenge. The one in Boynton Beach is the one closest, I think, to this site. For 20 years, my first design study for that project was 3 days after 9/11. My dad did the original rendering, and we thought it was a go. Commission killed it. Back in 2010, 10 years later, that commission, including people that went to that high school, said we need to tear it down because we need a parking lot. Because we need a parking, and they had a parking lot like next door, okay? 2016, new young commission, you know, thinking out of the box. Their first meeting was on my birthday, February 2nd, 2016, at a board meeting. We came with a contractor and we said, we are here to do a study to save the building. And they said, first motion was no more demolition of that, we're gonna save that building. And so they made that commitment, right? So it takes a political will. When I speak across the state, I always try to talk to, every city has great staff. Great zoning people, great staff, great staff. You know, it's the leadership that sometimes they don't understand these kind of buildings, right? So getting to the mayor or the county commissioner, whoever the person in charge is, to explain the latent value of when you do these projects. These come and go after us, and having a restrained architect and restrained design so that you don't put your big thumbs on it and mess it up. You know, you bring it back to what it was. And besides raising with state money, with local money, fundraising. People love to give money. I've done a couple of these where $3 million naming rights. Another one, the library in West Palm Beach, was a $5 million naming right. And there's a lot of people moving to Florida with a lot of money. Melissa Gates this week just gave $5 million to the Urban League of West Palm Beach. $5 million for a program. Just cut a check. So there are people in the private sector that will help the city if the city determines to say, we're going to go forward. Let's button our seatbelt and try to get this, you know, to the finish line.
Something I wanted to share with you and the board that my first project in Gainesville about 30 years ago, turns out, was the Matheson Center, which is a history museum not very far from this site, across University Avenue. It was the old American Legion building, had been abandoned for a while, probably done by the same architect as this building.
With boat trusses too, or no?
No, actually, they're angled trusses with a flat peak to the top of
Segmented,
it.
cool.
Heavy timbered trusses. The irony here is that when we tore that building apart, one, possibly two of the trusses, I can't really remember, had termite damage on one end of them, compromised them, and it was pushing the walls out.
So you've seen it.
I have seen it. The irony here is the engineer of record was the same you hired. And we simply went in and rebuilt the ends of the trusses, and it was fine.
Wow.
And it is still fine. So that's kind of something I just wanted to share with everybody. I've seen this before. However, you know, this building is a renovation project in addition to just a repair project.
Yes, correct.
So it's a much bigger budget.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in today's world, with the wind loads and everything else we have to deal with, it's a different world than it was back then, even 30 years ago. The other thing I was going to mention to you, around here, we don't need the impact glass, and it's rarely
Excellent.
used.
Excellent.
Because we don't get the high winds here. What we get are the falling trees and the flood damage.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great to know. That helps.
Yeah, and so.
And my budgets were extremely conservative, as I mentioned to you before the meeting. I went very high, not being able to get into the trusses.
Right.
You know, but I think, and with the economy, with the shift, we have several projects that we're finishing, and our clients are telling us, wait to go out to bid till summer of next year.
Yep.
Because everybody, I think, is starting to think it's not going to go all the way down because everybody still keeps coming to Florida, but it could be 10%, maybe 15% less expensive by the time the summer of next year comes along.
Right.
Second quarter.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Just
Yes.
regarding the complexity and the challenge of restoring this building, which case study would it be most comparable with? Just for me to help explain this to citizens who may be wondering.
I would say, let's see, the roof here is in worse condition.
Yeah.
Okay. In fact, Brian said, "Oh my God, this roof's in great." When he came with Robert, right, and with Joe Mincosi, the structure engineer, and Joe also did the report for Old Mount Carmel. So this one has a roof in a worse condition. I might say this one, the Boynton Beach High School, except the change in use from high school to community center, and a green building official that didn't understand historic buildings threw a curveball to the cost, and, you know, but that's great. I'm not complaining because now the building is super strong and the ballerinas can jump up and down on the first floor or whatever they want to do, and there's no concern for any loading on the building, you know, so this one's very similar. I think this is very, very good case study. It had, you can see the trusses over here, the original trusses. It's hard to see the decking, but a lot of the decking had to be replaced. Let's see. And this one had, if you see this one, look at this one, right? Here's a typical beam with significant damage, right? And we ran into a lot of that. We also ran into a lot of, I don't know why, but they had, over the years, they had replaced, you see the green board, right? So they replaced the decking on top, you know, so, and this was under where they did the apartments. So maybe it was when they were doing the apartments, you know, they kind of attached to the roof, and when they took it down, we had some issues to replace her. Is it Mr.
Courtney.
Courtney, okay.
Yes.
Nathaniel.
Yes.
I would use all three. I think they all bring different, and we have many, many more, but I think these three are the most relevant for your case study.
Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate the presentation, and I think it's amazing. I want to clarify, did I read correctly that there's going to be additional engineering required core sampling of the footers and what's underground on that north side?
When you move forward, hopefully with the project, you're going to need soil testing.
Right, because we talked a lot about and I love the steel, but I'm curious if the footers can support what you're proposing.
The footers, the steel footers are on new.
Yep, so we know we
Is that what I'm
have,
saying? The steel columns themselves are sitting on actual new footers?
so we have a raised floor over here on this side, right? It's about 30, maybe 24, 30 inches of space between, and we also know we have 12 by 12 blocks and footers holding up the wood joists, holding up the wood floor throughout that area. So it's going to be rather easy, and we did this at the St. Anne's in downtown West Palm, 1890s building, all hand framed, beautiful.
Oh, is this where the short people came in?
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
That contractor, it was just easier for him. Otherwise, you have to come in here, and at each column, you have to cut out maybe an area as big as this, right? And I think you mentioned we're going to replace the wood floor anyways, right? I mean, that was something that.
Yeah, the community that uses that space for dance programs would like to advocate for a better floor.
Right, because it's 80 years. That's a long lifespan for a wood floor.
Also, it's
After
about
many years of
refinished
sanding
out.
it, too. What's that? Sorry.
It's about refinished out. It's been
That's exactly right. There's no more.
we're running out of wood.
There's no more thinning it out. So, but it could be a sub base too. But you'd have to cut out at each one of the columns to get in there, do some soil samplings, and then, like we did in St. Anastasia and Fort Pierce, if necessary, a 5-foot auger pile if necessary, and then the foundation. Might not be necessary. Might be necessary in the northeast, right? And the northeast and northwest where there's the significant settlement issues there. It's going to be a fun project to do. I think, you know, to deconstruct it, pull it apart and put it back together. It's not being used right now, right, for nothing, right? So it's been closed for years, like the 20 years, like the Boynton Beach High School. Okay, good. That's very good. That means there's not a lot of water damage. We had a lot of mold, and we had to go in moon suits when we first started working on the Boynton Beach High School.
Yeah.
A lot of, like 6 months of decon work, guano, birds that got in there, the moisture. That was probably the worst one in terms of water damage that we dealt with. So yes, you would go in and you would look at do the soil testing reports, and then go forth and based on the recommendations and with the structural engineer, work from the bottom up.
I have a question. What was the original budget that was approved for this renovation? Was it like 2 million something?
I think it was 3.
I think they said 3.
3?
But I had questioned like that, if that was going to be substantial anyway for that.
Yeah.
I think the other had basically tearing it down and then re-leveling the entire lot.
That's expensive.
So I think 3 million was probably not going to be enough.
So this could be 50 to 100% more than that number.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you, Rick.
Thank you,
We
Jake.
appreciate it.
Thank you
Very
very much.
impressive.
Hope to see you soon again.
Okay. We'll see. It's a good report. Yeah, we have to. Okay, this is for continued public comment. Melanie, I believe you want to speak to the issue.
Well, I'm really thrilled that we do have a preservation architect that has proved it can be restored. So I've been attending the meeting since May. You hear me say the same things over and over, that it's possible. Today I brought you a picture from 1947, a postcard. And you can see this is what the people sent as a postcard, and it's of our newly built Thelma Bolton. And as you see, they were coming in from the east because that's where Camp Blanding was. And the soldiers would access it from the east, not from the west like we do now. And then, of course, I'm saying this is a significant building. The soldiers came here to party and get welcomed by the local women. Who knows when they're going to see American girls again. And they had a great time, formal dances. I love this because we don't have enough of them now. I love wearing pretty dresses and having fancy dances. And then, of course, I always mention to you that historic preservation does cost more. And I mentioned that in Tampa, that they were talking about restoring some bungalows there in a site that was mostly devastated and bulldozed due to urban renewal. And he did say, we need to save our history, not destroy it. This is a passion project. So it's not going to make total fiscal sense, but it's the right thing to do. And as we see, it does cost more, but it's the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, Robert Mounts. As you know, I'm current board president of the Matheson History Museum. And I can verify your comment because we just had a complete building inspection funded by former Mayor Gene Chalmers. And in fact, the roof is in great shape. So thank you for I didn't know this was coming as detailed and as magnificent as it is, but it's obviously on the right track. We'll do whatever we can to support it.
Thank you. Okay. Then, any more comments, Phil, or anything? Oh, one more. Yes.
Hi, my name's Steve Roberts. I probably have one of the best views of the Bolton Center of anybody right across the street. I may be preaching to the choir on this, but as a homeowner, I put a lot of money into the improvement and preservation of my home, a historic home. There are a lot of things that I could do more cheaply, a lot of things I could just tear out, but I'm not doing that. I'm spending the money. It's not a money deal because I know I'll probably never get it back. I'll eventually sell it anyway. It's about preserving the home. That's what I bought into when I moved into the duck pond, and I would like to see the city maintain that same commitment to historic preservation and not just doing what's necessarily the cheapest thing to do.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, that, unless there's any other comment, that concludes public comment. And I would like to thank Parks for bringing this presentation to us. All right, that brings us to the public hearing portion of the meeting. Ms. Gottman?
If any of you are here to speak for one of the public hearings, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give to the Historic Preservation Board today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Yeah. Very good.
Okay. Okay, brings us to public hearing 1.
Mr. Chair, I don't think we have any requests for deferral.
Okay.
And our first 3 public hearings are continued hearings from last meeting. First up is public hearing number 1 for 411 Northwest 3rd Street. This is COA 22000094. It is in the Pleasant Street Historic District. It is a contributing structure. We know the date of construction is really around 1909 to 1913 because it appears on the 1913 Sanborn map. This is a wood frame vernacular residence that, what is it? Oh. This is a wood frame vernacular residence that features a steep pyramidal hip roof, folding porch supported by thin piers and a brick stoop. The wood windows are 1/1 double hung sash and the siding is wood clapboard. This application is for an addition that is actually filling in the space between the rear of the structure and an auxiliary building that's already existing behind the house. So the existing auxiliary building is going to be renovated into the new master bedroom, and then the new piece that's filling in the existing house and the auxiliary building is going to be like a new family room. The new addition does follow the lines and proportions of the existing house, featuring a metal standing seam roof, which matches the existing roof, and wood novelty siding and trim. The new addition will be a partial 2-story with a sloping roof line. That addition is set to the rear of this primary residence. It will hardly be visible from the street, from the front street, if at all. At its peak, that new addition goes 22 feet 3 inches. The proposed zoning is RC, which requires a side setback of 5 feet and a rear setback of 5 feet for accessory structures. For primary structures and residences, the rear setback is normally 20 feet. So the exterior walls of that auxiliary structure in the back of the lot are not moving. The new addition is connecting that auxiliary structure and the primary residence, which now makes it all one building. So because you're making it all one building, it's now going to be a non-conforming use, which is why it's coming to this board, because now it requires a setback variance. Even though the auxiliary building footprint is not changing at all. It's not encroaching any further to that rear property line. Our evaluation is this. Overall, the new addition is designed to be compatible with the historic structure and will not likely be visible from the street. Design elements are in keeping with the character and use of the matching siding and roofing materials. So these rear additions can generally be an administrative approval. They don't normally have to come to the board. But because of that setback issue is why it's appearing in front of you. The applicable Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation that apply for this case are standards 9 and 10. Standard 9 is new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. The new addition is to the rear of the house. It is compatible with the massing, size, and scale. It won't detract from the historic building. And the proposed new construction will not destroy those character-defining features found in the historic portion. And Standard 10 talks about new additions and adjacent or related new construction. These shall be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired. As part of the new construction to the rear of the primary residence, a non-original rear laundry room with steps and some of the siding are being removed. But the related new construction will not impair the historic property or the surrounding historic environment if it were to be removed in the future. Recommendation is that application COA 22000094 be approved.
Okay, would the applicant like to address?
My name is Joshua Shackton, architect, and I'm here to answer any questions you have about it.
Okay. Do we have boards, questions from the board?
Looks pretty, nothing too controversial.
One question I had is what's behind your decision to go with glass sliding doors?
I guess they just wanted as much opening as possible there. Yeah, that was kind of I think it was just as much open glass space as possible with it. And yeah, really, I don't think, it was really basically a view out to there a little bit. They don't have much yard, so it was really kind of, this is basically all they're gonna have for yard. So it was really a visibility and a light issue for them.
Okay.
So.
And, yeah, the issues I'm coming up with are the fact that there are some horizontal windows in addition to the glass sliding doors. However, they're hidden kind of mid-building.
Yeah, none of this, you really you won't see any of this from the street. None of this is actually visible from the street. And we are doing the materials of the wood and the novelty siding kind of wraps this whole thing together.
Yeah. Okay.
With the setback change, does it interfere with any buried utilities or any?
No, there's not, because we're not building, the setback issue is just because the existing building is there that we're attaching to. So we're not building in any easement or any setback or, no, basically we're just doing an infill between two existing buildings. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make a motion.
Well, let's see if there's any other questions or comments. Okay,
Sure.
we have a motion?
I move to approve COA 2294.
Do we have a second?
I will second that motion.
Okay. Kathleen, would you like to do roll call?
Jay Reeves,
Aye.
Bill Warner,
Aye.
Liz Hawk, Michael Hill, Nathaniel Courtney,
Aye.
Philip Haight.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you all very much. Can I just ask a question? I'm curious about the raising a hand swearing. That's the first time I've ever witnessed that here.
It's the professional thing to do for a public hearing.
Oh, okay.
We're just
That's awesome.
mixing it up here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, Dottie?
Hi, Dottie Fabacy, Pleasant Street neighborhood, historic neighborhood. I just want to say how happy I am that someone from the neighborhood is adding to their property. Yay.
That is a good sign. Thank you. Okay, public hearing two.
Petition COA 22000059. This does not yet have an actual address, so you have the parcel number. This is the southwest corner of Northwest First Street and Northwest 7th Avenue. It's new construction in the Pleasant Street Historic District. So this project actually first came to you in July. At that time, the proposed new construction was for a two-story, single-family home with an attached EDU and a detached ADU, which is allowable by code. You can have two ADUs on the property. The main two-story home was proposed to be 1,600 square feet with 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. Both ADUs at that time, as originally presented to you, were 850 square feet each, with 2 bedrooms and 1 bath in each. As there are contributing 1-story wood frame vernacular structures to the west of this vacant parcel, the board felt that the 2-story detached ADU on the west side of the property did not effectively bridge the massing and height difference between the new 2-story construction and the existing 1-story contributing structures on the other side of the lot. The board requested that the second detached ADU be redesigned to better integrate with the existing character of the neighborhood. So this second detached ADU has been, and for those of you, ADU is accessory dwelling unit. Sorry, in case you didn't know what that was. The second detached ADU has been redesigned to be 1.5 stories. It's been reduced from 850 square feet to 702 square feet. It's now a one bedroom, 1 bath. The main structure is narrow but long and features a front porch. A 1-car garage is set back from the front facade of the house with gable and hip roofs. Siding on the ground floor is proposed to be hardy board and batten with horizontal pine shiplap on the second floor. The doors are simple in nature and windows are proposed to be 1/1 single hung sashes. The roof is proposed to be a shingle roof. And so the materials for the ADUs are similar. Both the attached and detached ADU feature entry porches. The zoning for this property is RC and complies with all the required setbacks. The applicable standards for new construction, and we went through all of these in your original public hearing, but there are 12 criteria that we use to evaluate the compatibility of new construction. So we went through all that. This was basically about the secondary ADU and your desire to have it redesigned. The proposed project complies with all but one of the guidelines for new construction and complies with the required setbacks, which he's now, if you are in agreement, has taken care of that one issue with the guidelines for that second ADU. Recommendation from staff is that the application COA 22-00059 be approved with the following conditions. Condition 1 is that fenestration is needed for the west elevation of that newly designed detached ADU so that it is not just one solid wall. There's no windows or any openings on that side. That is to be approved by the Historic Preservation Officer if you so desire, so they don't have to come back here again. Condition 2 is only in there because we had some planners take a look at this and they just wanted to make sure that you plan for future sidewalk on the northwest 7th Avenue side per requirements in the Land Development Code 30-6.18, because there are other properties on that northwest 7th Avenue side that have recently received new sidewalks because they're trying to make it more walkable there. Your two site elevations that were given to you today. So you'll see that the first one, and I have it outlined for you, was that detached ADU. That first page was from the first submittal. The second page is the new submittal, so you can kind of compare the two designs. And the third page is the square footage tables and the floor plans. So now that second accessory dwelling unit is 702 square feet, and it's 1 bedroom, 1 bath.
Okay. All right. And would you like to say something in regards to this? Sure.
wanted you to see the two side by side. This is the proposed new ADU, and this is the house next door. And it's very similar in style and scale. It's a little taller, but it's between a one-story building and a two-story building. I thought a 1.5-story building was a good transition. That's about it. If you have any questions, I don't have an issue with windows on the west side. I'm sure we can find a way to do that. The sidewalk I haven't looked at, but I believe the right-of-way is, the street is pushed north in the right-of-way, so I think there's probably plenty of room there to put sidewalk.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Kaplan? I have one just question, and I think I brought it up last time. I'm kind of foggy, but I think we were talking about the house originally. And that was the issue of the board and batten siding. And one of the additional question I have for you is that, since I know you're very well familiar with board and batten siding right now, given the house next door to me, my question to you is, how far apart are the battens? They seem a little on the wide side to me.
I don't have that drawing in front of me. Do you have that drawing?
It looked to me like about 24 inches, or close to it. Yeah, and usually it's 12 to 16.
Yeah, I usually do 16,
Yeah.
because that's where the framing is.
Yeah, I would concur with Jay's comment there.
Well, actually, if you're trying to give it the historic look of a historic house, they'd be about 12 inches apart.
Yeah, and I'm seeing them even closer than that.
Yeah.
The house next door to you.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. That's what got me thinking about it. But what it looks like
Yeah.
here is they're just,
It's on the, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
yes, please.
It appears on the elevation, and it says, I mean, it's tiny because it's only a ledger size.
I see it 24 inches on center. That's too wide.
Okay. They can be either 16 or 12, I think would be fine.
Okay. Yeah, I think 12 would give it more the historic look you're after.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Just make
And
that one of the
originally, I had
conditions.
that siding on the ADUs, and one of the things the board requested was that the ADUs look less like the house.
Yeah.
And so I took it off the ADUs and it's only on the house.
Yeah.
And the
No.
ADUs will just be horizontal siding.
Yeah. I will say a good job on the ADU. It looks very much consistent with the neighborhood. And it is subservient to the house now, which is what we were after.
Okay,
Yeah, good job.
thank you.
All right, yeah, I would say whoever makes the motion, it'd be good to address that as a condition to the motion.
I have a motion to approve, motion to approve COA 22-00059 with the conditions that were added by staff, and also with the conditions that the chair just mentioned of taking the battens from 24 to 12 inches. Is that correct, Mr. Chair?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, that is my motion.
Second,
Okay.
second.
Okay.
Jay Reeves,
Aye.
Bill Warner,
Aye.
Liz Hawk,
Aye.
Michael Hill,
Aye.
Daniel Courtney,
Aye.
Philip Haight.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Good to go.
Okay.
Public hearing number 3 is COA 22-000-100. This is an after-the-fact certificate of appropriateness for the construction of a wooden fence. This is in University Heights South Historic District. The address is 504 to 516 Southwest 10th Street, because this fence goes along a couple of parcels, one with the house and one that is vacant at the moment. Date of construction is 1940. So these parcels include one contributing structure and a vacant lot. The contributing structure is one of the unique historic church houses in the district. And I'm going to take this opportunity to give a plug for Chert. Let the people know what Chert is. Chert is a local limestone rock that was quarried from the mid-1920s to the 1940s. It was used to build many of the houses around the vicinity of the University of Florida at that time. This is an after-the-fact COA, which means they did it without the permit or the COA. Originally, this fence did fluctuate between 4 and 5 feet in height, with 6 feet along the sides. Staff went on a site visit and met the owner on site. After that meeting, part of the fencing along the front was cut down to provide you'll see on the photos, there's kind of an undulation now in the fence line so that it moves away from the church house behind it. Our historic preservation, rehabilitation, and design guidelines do provide when fences can be approved by staff and when it has to go to the board for approval. And this really has to do with the percentage of transparency. So when you have, so it appears to be, it's a picket fence in the sense that there are individual boards in this fence, but they're so close together that it really gives more of an appearance of a stockade fence. So for us to be able to use the heights that a 50% transparency fence can have, these would have to be further separated somewhere in the future. So the Secretary of the Interior standards that we would have used in this application are 9 and 10. Standard 9 is about new additions, alterations, related new construction, shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. Well, this is a fence. It's not adjoined to the historic house at all. The wood material is compatible with materials found in the district. The material is not the issue. But this, as the owner was explaining to me, this is a partially fencing off a vacant lot that will be coming to you in the future for development. So this fence is sort of like the precursor to a construction fence. They wanted to put up some kind of temporary security solution to start making sure people aren't traversing across the property and that sort of thing, because it is going to come to you for future development. Standard 10 is about new additions and adjacent new construction. If they're ever removed in the future, it would not impair the integrity of a historic property. Again, the fence is not really connected to anything historic. So the recommendation is to approve this after the fact construction COA 22-000-100 with the following conditions. Condition 1, the fence shall be painted white to look like a finished product. Condition 2, at the time the new construction project for this vacant lot comes before the Historic Preservation Board, that application shall include plans for fencing both properties that comply with the current guidelines.
Is there any timeline on that?
I think within a year.
Okay.
Yeah, my concern would be that 3 years from now, the fence is still there, it looks just like it does right now.
But we can always put a timeline as a condition too. That if it's not handled within 8 months, that the fence has to come into compliance with the current code. So it already does now mostly, because I went out there and met with them and they had to cut it down some.
Yeah, height is not the problem, it's the opacity.
It's the opacity.
So,
Because some of these boards look like they're 8 inches wide in places. And yeah, that's not even standard stockade. That's bigger than stockade.
so as a front yard fence, it is totally inappropriate. And it's fundamental character. So I want to see a timeline that 12 months from now, it either comes down or they've got a proposal before us.
Or it gets reviewed again in 12 months.
Comes up again, either one. I just see this thing sticking around as a precedent.
I think that's a real risk, yeah.
Yeah, it looks very out of place.
And is there a gate to this fence?
No.
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 I don't really even see the reason for the fence.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't see the reason for a fence to keep people from walking through an area when you have these giant gaps in the fence and people are just gonna walk through the area.
This obviously is not crime prevention through environmental design. That's all I have to say.
I guess my concern is the same. I'm afraid that the fence will stay, it'll set a precedent, and then suddenly everyone will want to have these solid wood fences across their front lawns to prevent students from walking through.
Well, precedent would be my concern as well. But unless it's very specific in that, and it is basically labeled a temporary fence.
So you have options. You can give a condition for a timeline. You can give a condition that they're allowed to keep the fence at the current height, but take every other board out, or increase the opacity to 50%. You have the option of denying the COA, and they would have to remove all of it.
I think, just looking at the photos, it looked pretty goofy to just take out every other board.
Yeah, it would look.
Then I think it would look worse. The palings there are wide and would look weird with every other one gone. It's not particularly well articulated. And so, I'll make, I would move that the fence has a maximum 1-year timeline and is either replaced
Something that meets the guidelines.
with something that does meet our guidelines.
I'd agree with that.
Second?
Is that a second?
I second. Is that a motion?
Okay. I move to approve COA 22-100 with the condition that it exists for a maximum of 12 months and be either removed or part of a development proposal.
Second.
To be clear, it's replacement as part of a development proposal.
We need to open it up and see if there's any public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay. Now we can do it.
All right.
Now we can do a vote.
Jay Reeves,
Aye.
Bill Warner,
Aye.
George Hawk,
No.
Michael Hill,
Aye.
Nathaniel Courtney,
Aye.
Bill Haight.
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay. Okay, that brings us to public hearing 4.
This is petition COA 22-000-122. Address is 415 Northeast 5th Avenue. This is in the Northeast Duck Pond Historic District. Date of construction is 1949. When the district was last surveyed in 1996, the property at 415 Northeast 5th Avenue was classified as a ranch-style home, perhaps because of the greater emphasis on spreading the house more horizontally on the lot than traditionally, and the lower pitched roof. Staff's opinion is that this is a textbook example of how styles cross over as you move from one decade to the other, to the next. This is clearly like leaving the minimal traditional phase which was popular in the late 1930s and 1940s, and that those traditional elements can still be seen, such as the more classical portico being used as the front entryway, and colonial style windows. The structure has not yet become true ranch or any other true mid-century style. This property is also a great example of why historic districts need to be resurveyed and updated from time to time. This charming house would now be considered contributing, because at that time it was classified as non-contributing. But as you know, as time goes on, things get older, like me. Oh, gosh. This application originally included the replacement of metal casement windows on the side floor to room, but that element from this application is on hold right now. They want to make sure they find the absolute right, correct windows to use. So we're not considering the window replacement as part of this application tonight. What's requested today is a new rear screened porch, an addition in the back, and a new small swimming pool in the backyard. The proposed screen porch comes directly off the rear center of the existing property and is 14 feet deep and 19 feet 9 inches wide. It features a front gable roof and a simple balustrade railing at the bottom of the screened enclosure. The new pool is 17 feet by 12 feet and has an adjoining hot tub and small sun deck. The property is zoned U2. The side setback requirements are 5 feet. The rear setback requirement is 10 feet. And the new pool is requiring a setback variance from you, should you choose to give it, from 10 feet to 5 feet. Overall, the rear addition is designed to be compatible with the historic structure and will not be visible from the front street. This is a corner property and will be visible from Northeast 5th Street. However, the design elements are in keeping with the character, as it is a traditional screened-in porch. A rear addition can generally be an administrative approval when the addition is sited in the rear yard and does not front on 2 or more streets and utilizes materials and textures consistent with the principal building. So this does front 2 streets, which is one of the reasons why it's coming to you instead of just being approved by me administratively. But also the setback variance for the pool. The applicable standards, okay, so I'm giving you the applicable standards with the understanding that as of right now, this is a non-contributing structure. So you have more leeway when reviewing these projects. You don't need to hold them to the strict guidelines that contributing structures would require. Be that as it may, it still complies with the standards. So standard 9 is new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy the historic materials that characterize the property. This addition is to the rear of the house, and it's compatible with the massing, size, and scale. It does not detract from the existing building, and again, it's classified as non-contributing. Standard 10 is new additions and adjacent or related new construction shall be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired. The related new construction could be removed in the future without negatively impacting the existing structure. And we do have confirmation that the neighbors who are abutting where the pool is going to be put do not have an issue with the setback variance.
Okay. Mr. Shack.
I am Joshua Shack, an architect. This house is, it's an immaculate house. They keep it in great shape. It's really the landscaping is amazing. Everything's beautiful. The backyard is very tight. So we did a lot of work on how we could do the swimming pool in the backyard here. The porch addition doesn't have an issue with the setback, but even that, we were out there trying to figure out how do you even get some backyard with doing this in the pool. So the Brennans who live just south of them, they don't have any issue with pushing the setback. And it's not a building, it's just a swimming pool setback. Otherwise, it's a pretty straightforward, clean project, and the owners here do a great job keeping this house up. It's immaculate.
Okay.
Answer any questions?
All right, thank you. Anybody from the public? Okay. Any board comment or question?
Oh, straightforward.
Oh? Okay. Could I have a motion?
Move to approve COA 22-122.
Second.
Okay.
Jay Reeves,
Aye.
Bill Warner,
Aye.
Liz Hawk,
Aye.
Michael Hill,
Aye.
Daniel Courtney,
Aye.
Bill Haight.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay.
And I will tell everyone out there in TV land and those watching, those who stayed to the very end, all of these staff reports, all the backups, all the plans, that all is available online. So if you want to see what they're seeing, you can go see it online.
Kathleen, question. Is the architect's presentation on Thelma Bolton, will that also be online?
It's already on there.
Perfect, thank you.
It's already on there, and it's not only, well, not that particular presentation, which we can now put on after the PowerPoint, but that report is on there, and both of the structural reports.
Perfect, thank you.
So now, those of you who have stayed, you're gonna get a treat. This is the best for last. This is public hearing 5, COA 22. You're gonna have to recuse yourself.
I'm going to recuse myself due to personal involvement.
I too also will have to recuse myself because of somewhat personal involvement.
Do we have enough?
No, you
people?
can't do that.
I cannot.
No, because then we can't vote.
Yeah, we don't have enough.
You're not,
I mean, I work part-time, but I mean, is that a conflict?
no.
No, I wouldn't say so.
Okay, then never
It's
mind.
his firm, but do you want to go down there to answer questions?
We did that last time, Jay? Did you? I can, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, if you're representing the project, yeah, it's fine. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, this is
I need to
petition,
raise my hand.
Yes, you do.
That's a formal way to do it.
He doesn't
I
understand.
need to
Robert's
swear
rules.
you in, sir. Can you please raise your right hand?
All right.
God, it's contractors, man. God.
I know.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give the board today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, and I would like to wish you a happy birthday.
Oh, thank you, thank you. This is COA 22-000-123. This is a COA for the restoration of a historic property after a fire. This is in Pleasant Street Historic District, 320 Northwest 1st Street. Date of construction, property appraiser has 1920, but our Florida Master Site File forms say it's 1894. The owner is Martin Simpson and his wife. Martin Simpson is a professor at UF. They don't live in this property. They had rented it out, but it's very near and dear to their heart, and they have kept it immaculate for many years and were completely devastated over this fire. This is one of Gainesville's finest examples of a vernacular house that had Italianate features. When surveyed in 1980 with the rest of the Pleasant Street Historic District, at that time, the house had a non-original one-story entry portico. And you can see a tiny picture of that in your Florida Master Site File sheets in your packet. Kiefer Calkins, who happens to be the City of Gainesville's current chief inspector, and his wife Sandy
purchased the home in 1984, and they set about to restore the then condemned property to its original configuration. The interior had been divided into 3 apartments, so the Calkins removed all the non-original partitions, and they recreated the original double veranda. Though no photographic evidence existed at that time, the Calkins talked to the neighbors who remembered the veranda, and Kiefer created banister templates to best replicate what might have been there. More detailed history on that home's restoration by the Calkins is also included in your Florida Master Site File papers. On April 13th, 2022, a fire broke out on the 2nd floor veranda and destroyed much of the roof, 2nd floor and 2nd floor balcony. The property owner's insurance company, of course, deemed the house a total loss. The owners, but instead of demolishing the property, which they were so fearful they might have to do, they are determined to bring it back to its former glory. The applicant is proposing to restore the exterior, including the roof, as the property was at the time of the fire. Everything is planned to be done in accordance to the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. The new windows will match the existing and will be wood 2/2 double hung sash. The roof will be replaced with asphalt shingles to match the existing color in OC duration in gray. All siding that can possibly be salvaged and restored will be saved. New siding will match the original in size and mill cut. The 2-story full-width porch, the veranda, will be restored to match the existing design, including those intricate porch railings. The applicable standards for this situation are 2, 5, and 6. Standard 2, the historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alteration of features and spaces that characterize a property shall be avoided. This project is only removing those historic materials which simply cannot be reused due to the fire damage. The historic character of the property is going to be retained and preserved. All of the work is restorative in nature. Standard 5. Distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a historic property shall be preserved. All original features and construction techniques for the exterior as well as the interior are going to be preserved where possible, if not terribly damaged. And then standard 6 is about deteriorated historic features. They should be repaired rather than replaced. But when that severity of deterioration requires replacement, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. Because of the severity of this fire, many of the distinctive features are requiring replacement, but it is planned to match the old features in design, color, texture, and materials. You have actually, as part of your packet, kind of extensive photographs that staff took on 2 different site visits to the house shortly after the fire. The last one was in June, I think. It's honestly, and if you all go online, you can see all the photos I took of that property inside and out. It's heartbreaking to see the kind of damage fire does. Not only to the historic structure that we all work so hard to preserve, but just to the personal effects that were left in there and were now melted together, and it's very affecting and very moving. Staff recommends that the application COA 22-000-123 be approved.
Okay.
I will just add one more thing. You do have the first floor plans and second floor plans from before fire and after renovation. There is like one slight interior change where they're moving the kitchen back to a normal sized room, but we don't really deal with interiors, so it's there for you to see, but they're not changing any of the exterior walls. They're doing a complete restoration job.
Okay. You have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, just that we look forward to bringing this house back to life and with some modern engineering and technologies to keep it energy efficient. The only thing that we're really not able to save is the structure of the roof due to trying to engineer a conventionally stick-framed roof out of 2x4s that's 24-inch on center is pretty impossible these days. So
It is impossible.
that roof structure will be, from the inside, it will be engineered.
Okay.
That's about it.
All right. Questions of the board, comments? Yep, no, I'm glad it's happening. Thank you. Public comment?
Dottie Fabacy, Pleasant Street neighborhood. Along those same lines, just seeing the aftermath of the fire was devastating. And driving by there, walking by there, every day that we see it, it's still so hard to see. So I'm so encouraged by this. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Melanie Barr. I think I was the one that possibly, we can see in the master site file, that took pictures of it back when it didn't have the beautiful porch that Kiefer made. And I want to thank the Symptoms for going ahead and preserving it, especially because it is one of the oldest and most significant buildings in Pleasant Street. And Kiefer did a magnificent job of restoring it, and all his work should be preserved as well. And I just want to thank the Symptoms and thank the contractor for being a good preservationist.
Okay, thank you. Okay, would somebody like to make a motion?
Sure. I move that we accept petition COA 22-00123.
Second.
Approve, excuse me.
Motion is second.
Ready?
Jay Reeves,
Aye.
Bill Warner,
Aye.
Liz Hawk,
Aye.
Michael Hill,
Aye.
Nathaniel Courtney.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Come on back.
Come back, Phil. Dirty contract.
Okay. Next, that brings us to board business. Is there any board business from anyone?
I promise to send you your articles in an email shortly.
Okay.
Your articles of interest.
Okay, thank you.
I love that people miss it when it doesn't come.
Oh, yeah, we do. All right.
It's encouraging.
Any member comments?
Is this really your birthday?
Really?
Today.
Yeah.
Today.
Okay.
Happy birthday.
I gotta say, this was a very productive meeting. We got a lot done today.
I just have to say, it's cracking me up because every time I look down there, I just see Figment.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
This is my birthday present from Liz.
Okay. All right, next meeting date, December 6th, Tuesday. And if there's nothing else, we are adjourned.
Adjourned.